So to give you the top-down view, we've taken the roof off of our little fake box, and we have a camera up above. I'm going to grab my tape measure and demonstrate this to you. So we have a distance of about 2 feet between the modifier and our model. It's feathered, so most of the light is going to bounce onto this surface over here at a distance of about 6 feet, and then to get to her, it's about 5 feet. So that's 11 feet, about 3.5 meters between here, here, and her, versus 2 feet right here. Just if you imagine you're standing really close to that hose pipe, you're going to have the strongest water hitting you. If you're going further away from the hose pipe, the water loses a lot of its power, and you have less of that water hitting you. It's a similar kind of thing that happens with light in the studio. When we move her, I'll just have you sit on that without this. When we move her closer to that, yeah, go a little even closer still. Perfect. And we take the picture right here. Let's do that. I'll take this shot. If I can get the camera to focus. Lovely. That's not a good photograph, but that's all right. And we bring this light along with us. Perfect. We have the 2 feet distance still. Yeah, that's about right. By the way, I don't go into any shoots with tape measures and measure this out. I'm just showing you for the sake of showing you. And from up there, you can see that's about a 2 feet distance. This is now 3.5 feet, plus 3 feet, 5 feet. So this light from here has to travel the same distance to her as it did before, but the light that's hitting this bounce surface and bouncing back onto her has to travel much less further. You lose a lot less of its power. So you get a much more even image between both sides. And it's much more clean looking in terms of there's less contrast because both sides are kind of starting to even out. So what I'll have you do, let's do a little piece of choreography where you and Magnus move in sync 2 inches in this direction every time I take a picture. So we'll start here. Perfect. Jenna, and then I'll have you move. Yeah, good. And you'll see as we go through these images, keep going. Perfect, and I'll look at them on the screen in sequence, and then one more. Lovely, nice. We are literally dialing in. Oh yeah, you can see that so clearly. As she moves across, you are dialing in how much contrast there is because you're increasing the distance from that bounce surface. It's exactly the same way. This is perfect for if you don't have movable walls or V-flats that can move. No one has movable walls, I guess. Instead of moving the V-flat closer to get more bounce, you're moving your subject and the light closer to that bounce surface. So I'm going to show you now how this applies in 3 dimensions if we want to get the backdrop to be darker. There's one other thing I want you to remember. We've ended up on an exposure, and Jenna, you can hang out here, this is perfect. We've ended up on an exposure that looks about right. Maybe I could turn the light up a little bit. I'm going to do that here via my trigger. Lovely. That's a nice photograph. It has a lot of shape. The shadows are filled in beautifully by my bounce. But let's say I want the backdrop to be darker. And this has melted my brain for years. And I finally think I found a way to explain it to you by showing you when we move the subject in closer and further, and we keep the light in the same place, I'm going to take that one step further and we'll measure it out again on the backdrop. And I want you to try this for yourself because it's extremely, extremely counterintuitive. We're going to move the light. We want the backdrop to get darker. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the light closer to the model. Now remember, it's very close. Remember, if it's too bright, I'm going to turn it down. If it's too dark, I'm going to turn it up. So let's take that shot. We've moved our light in closer to the model. That's too bright. So very simple. I don't need to run in with a light meter or anything like that. I don't need to get technical. I just go, okay, let's turn it down until it's correctly exposed on my model. Lovely, that looks about right. Bring your chin slightly towards the light, Jenna. Beautiful. Lovely, I think that looks about right. I could come down a little bit more. So, look I'll do one more shot here. Perfect. Nice. That's perfect exposure for my model. So, look what's happened. As I've moved my light closer to the subject, there we go. Oh, I'll use that last shot that we did. Magnus, come in a little closer, actually. There we go. Perfect, thank you. As I've moved my light closer to the subject, it's not even much of a difference. We've had two things that changed. First, the distance, and then I've had to remember if it's too bright, I'm going to turn it down. Because the light is closer, it's going to be brighter, just like if you have a candle. You know, Rembrandt painted this famously, candlelight. If you have a candle super close to your face, it's going to give you the most amount of light. As it moves away, you have less and less of its light. Same thing with this modifier. As I've had to bring it in closer to the subject, I've had to turn it down because it's too bright. And therefore, the background also gets darker. But why? Well, as far as the background's concerned, I'll show you here on our little top-down view. The distance from the background to the modifier is about 3.5 feet. Magnus, go back to the position where you were before. The distance from the background to the modifier stays about 3.5 feet. As far as the background is concerned, the light didn't move in relation to how far it is away from the background as it comes in closer. To the background, it doesn't move. All that changed is as I've brought it closer to the model, I've had to turn the power down on my light. Again, I'm not using a light meter. I'm just bringing the power down to make it the correct amount of light for the model. And therefore, the background, all that's changed to it, because the distance didn't change, is the power of the light. So paradoxically, mind-meltingly, in a way that's like, really? The way to get less light on your subject if you're in a small space, less light in your environment when you're in a small space, is to move the light closer to your subject. This melted my brain for the longest time, but once I really tried it out, it unlocks shooting in a small space. Because the ratio, the amount of, not ratio, we're not actually getting into a ratio, but the amount of light now that bounces from these, because you've had to turn this down. Most of the light is just on our subject, and because we've had to turn this down, less light is bouncing. Remember, I didn't change the camera settings. Most of the light's coming out of the modifier. Less light, because I've turned it down, is bouncing off all of our other surfaces, and you literally have a moodiness slider as you go in closer and further from your model. The only thing you have to do is say, oh, it's a little bit overexposed in that space, so therefore I'm going to have to turn it down. That's why I teach with, if it's too bright, turn it down. If it's too dark, turn it up. That's all we need to do when we're shooting one light in a small space like this. So again, the distance here, when he moves across, doesn't change. But the light on the model, we have to adjust to have it be the same. So I just want you to take away from this, because it can get very technical very quickly, and there's all sorts of things happening. There's two things I want to point out. First, if it's too bright, just turn it down. If you want it to be moody, you bring it closer to your model. That's something you can kind of keep, in a small space, if I'm shooting and there's lots of bounce surfaces, find a way to bring the modifier in closer. The beautiful thing is, yes, the modifier is in my frame. So I might have to take a clean shot where the modifier isn't in the frame. So I'll do it like this when we're shooting. Okay, Jenna, will give me a little shape here. Perfect. Magnus, good. I'll take a shot. Okay, come a little towards me a little bit. Perfect. Jenna, bring your chin towards the light just a touch. Magnus, come in a little closer. Yeah, beautiful. That's nice. I'm gonna come in a little closer still. Yeah, perfect. Good. You could even wrap in a little bit. There we go. we have like a sort of shorthand, that's nice. And you see, just like we showed you in the one light video, making tiny changes makes a huge difference, because every time you make a change, the amount of light on your bounce surface changes, the light on your ceiling changes, the closeness to the model changes. But all of this is fantastic if you want to shoot a lot of variety for your clients in a small space, because you're really using those bounce surfaces. So now, Magnus is in the frame with the light, holding it. So this is another benefit of having someone to work with. I'll say, okay, oh my God, we got the perfect shot. Jenna looks fantastic. You know, let's say you're doing seniors photographs or something. You want to like, good, I've nailed that shot. This senior is looking absolutely fantastic. This is the shot I'm going to use. Magnus, could I just get a plate? Yeah, perfect. I'll still need a little bit of light. I just want to get a clean shot of this background here. So maybe come in a little bit. Right from there, just so you're out of the frame there for me, and we get a plate, a clean plate that I could retouch out the modifier, or now with AI retouching, you just select it, get rid of it, and it's perfect. So having the modifier in the frame is a very common thing for me, because I'm trying to get that moodiness, so I'm always bringing the light in much closer. So how this works in actuality is, forget everything I just said, because it gets so complicated. I just want you to take away the fact that if you are in a big space and you're in a small space and you're worried about all the spill from your light, because it will just bounce around everywhere, is as you get closer in, you're literally dialing down the amount of light that's bouncing off your surfaces and bringing in more light directly from your modifier. And I'm going to show you now why I have the light set up on the stick and handheld, because of how Magnus and I will work together. So I'm going to shoot this handheld. And if you've got clients, the thing about this that I also want to just point out, I love shooting in a small space. I want you not to be afraid, because you have a safety built in. If you have a small space like this, if you gave me the biggest warehouse in the world to shoot in, infinite amount of space, I would say, can I please have some V-flats? Can I please put up some shower curtains? Can I please find something that's light in color? It doesn't even have to be white. It can be gray, that I can bounce off. And I'm going to build this little box because it's super forgiving. If you have your light bouncing in here, she's now wearing a light colored outfit, but you know, I always look at the gap, the area right in here, would be right in here, where there's the most shadow when you don't control for your shadows. It can go completely black. Well, the thing is, with all of this, you have your shadows completely dialed in. You almost can't go wrong. And so if you had an assignment where I could only shoot for 30 seconds, which is something that happens, this is the setup I would go to. I would put a light on a stick with someone that I took 2 minutes, and I'd say, hey, if I say wrap, bring it in. If I say feather, bring it out a little bit. Be subtle with the movements. Good, let's go. We have Jenna for 30 seconds. We're gonna do a $1,000 sale of her senior portrait, because I'm just gonna do that. And I'll go in and say, okay, good, wrap from here, feather from here, good. Walk it a little bit towards me, Magnus. Good, wrap in from here. Lovely, Jenna is performing perfectly, the best senior portrait I've ever done. I've never done any, I think. Good, perfect, like maybe bring it in from the top a little bit, Magnus. Yeah, good. And if I want it to be really clean and really commercial looking, I'm gonna be right here with him, right next to the modifier. Because remember, when we moved towards the modifier, we're shooting with the modifier, it gets much cleaner. So the thing about the small spaces that I just cannot shut up about is that all our shadows are so beautifully filled in, no matter what we do, even with the ceiling removed here, which we can redo this whole sequence also with the ceiling, that actually the variety of shots we're getting here, it gets like interesting and moody, and kind of like every frame is just really flattering, because I think flattering light is all about directionality and filling in your shadows. So let's actually repeat that little sequence. I'll just take a moment to reset and put the ceiling back on our setup, because I want to have also the option of that light bouncing in from the top.